live. Oh shit, that sounded loud. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the one, the only, Mark Plummer.
What is going on?
Welcome, buddy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited. We got lots to talk about. Lots to talk about. So let's start off with a brief description of who you are and what brings you here today.
Absolutely. My name is Mark Plummer. I guess I'm more of a social media influencer, even though I hate the word influencer.
Yeah.
I think it's super stupid, and everyone thinks they're an influencer now. So I'll just say I'm just doing my
Wait,
own
wait,
thing.
I'm not?
Not yet.
I'm just kind of unapologetically myself, and I like just speaking the truth.
Nice.
Because everyone likes to put labels on anything, and everyone's too scared to say what's actually going on. So everyone's too scared of the cancel culture, and I'm pretty uncancelable because I'll say whatever I want.
I love it. I love it. So let's get into this. I've known you for a while now, and we were just talking off camera about how just this morning I was talking to Alina about how the person that I saw on social media really wasn't the person that I met, and I love that. I love that you've created a brand, and you're marketing yourself as a business. And that's what you are. You're a business. Mm-hmm. What you do, what you say, what you put as far as content goes is a business. So that's where we are today. Let's rewind. So where are you born? Are you local? Or are you from the States? Where'd you grow up?
I was actually born here in Ottawa.
Yeah?
25 years of small town, government town life. And I did a lot of traveling. But my parents, as far as a Disney trip or a trip to Branson, Missouri for a week or 2 weeks, I stayed basically 21 years only in Ottawa, nowhere else.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was 4 years ago you started traveling.
Yeah.
And you haven't stopped.
Basically.
Damn. That's awesome. So high school in Ottawa.
Yes.
Were you the popular kid? Were you the shy kid? Who was Mark in high school?
So in elementary school, I like to say I was pretty popular. Much as an 8-year-old could be popular. I was okay, I had a good family. We grew up well. And then I went from elementary school into middle school, which obviously you have the school transition.
Yeah.
And I went from being the big fish in some tiny little pond into a school that had grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I was the smallest fish in the biggest pond possible.
Wow.
And I could not grasp that adjustment very well because I felt I always had to make up because I was no longer important.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So through grade 7 and 8, I think I got suspended 14 times based off of just I thought I was just being myself, being funny, being happy. But everyone's trying to figure out what they want to do, who they are.
Yeah.
And I did mine in much more, as of you could say social media right now, an extravagant way. I really went above and beyond everything.
Was that attention-seeking behavior for you?
Oh, absolutely.
You love that?
Yeah.
You thrived on that?
I always thrived on that. I didn't like school. I hated school. I always thought school was pointless. I still do.
Yeah.
If I could go back and not go through high school, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But I got thrown out of classes. I just wouldn't show up. And as school transitioned, I became very smart into what people wanted to see and was able to convert around grade 9 or 10 into being the popular person.
Nice.
And I wouldn't say popular, but I ended up buying a Mark III Supra to fit into the car group.
Okay.
Because I was always good with money. And I worked from age 11 of cutting grasses, paper routes, and I just saved every cent.
Yeah.
So when I was 17, I could buy my own car. That was $22,000. But that got me into the car group. Then I'm just okay, I always played sports. So then I joined the basketball team, got captain. Then I joined the volleyball team, got captain. So then I got the sports people all down.
Yeah.
And then around grade 11, I started lifting, which no one else started lifting. And then that instantly gave me some type of, I would say, high school hierarchy because that's when everyone was getting into fitness. But because I got there a year earlier, then it was okay. So that I feel I balanced every single social aspect.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I didn't fit into any of them.
No.
I just did it to be.
So when you say you didn't fit in, what part of that, because obviously fitting in, there's having friends, but then there's another component to that, right? So what does that mean to you?
I just didn't feel like I belonged in any of the groups. And it's not because I wasn't passionate. Like, I loved sports, but the people that did sports was their whole life.
Okay.
I loved cars, but these people that loved cars were their entire life.
Yeah.
The business people, as much as you could be a business person in high school, they only did business. Like, nobody would do everything.
So you didn't identify necessarily with one group. You were just interested in kind of life. You were just interested in every aspect,
doing
right?
everything. But with that said, it's impossible to make real friends in any group because I always just felt like an acquaintance in each group because I didn't have the same passion as everyone else.
And do you feel that you knew that early on, that you just wanted to almost, lack of a better term, but diversify your portfolio? I mean,
I always knew that people were the most important. And I knew that I did screw up in grades 7, 8, 9 because like when I started getting picked on, I just became even bigger of like a attention seeker, I could say. So like the only way I could get attention was in like getting bullied almost, if that makes sense. So like I would almost egg the bullies on to like pursue fights, to like do anything because then everyone's crowding around, everyone's watching. And then towards like I would say halfway through grade 8, I realized that like I shouldn't be doing that. But unfortunately, I stopped, they didn't. So then for the rest of grade 8, all of grade 9, I just got wailed on like 24/7. I was like 4'9", 110 pounds. Like, I'm short as it is.
Yeah.
So like I just got wailed on. But I wouldn't change it. I really wish that bullying would come back into schools.
It didn't identify, it really molded who you've become, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that's a part of what got you into bodybuilding at grade 11?
Yeah. It was definitely just like being smaller than everyone else, getting picked on, like your typical why people start bodybuilding story. And in basketball, I would always put in a lot of work, like on the outside of like, okay, I wasn't that tall. So I'm just like, I need to be better on skills, better on shooting. Same with volleyball, just practice. But then I would see other people, they wouldn't care. And I'm just like, why am I on this team when I'm the only one that cares and everyone else is kind of just doing whatever? Like, they don't have what it takes to like, get to the top. So I wanted to do something for myself that no one else was involved.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned you wish that like bullying would come back. Now that's a big statement.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So what exactly do you mean by that? And maybe to clarify for people, like obviously you were on the receiving end of bullying. So obviously that's not great. And I did some of that as well when I was in high school, but let's be clear. What do you mean by you wish bullying would come back? So you feel that there's a place for it, I think, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think that now this whole you can't touch another kid rule is absolutely ridiculous. You're basically set all these kids up for failure. Like, are you going to tell your boss, hey, don't talk to me like that? Bro, you're fired. Peace. Go get a new job.
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect? All these kids are like, oh, nobody wants to work anymore. All these super entitled kids that you can't give them even one piece of constructive criticism, or they break down, have a mental fit, and attempt suicide. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, I wonder why. Oh, yeah, you were never told you were ugly. You were never told you were fat. You never got hit. You never got bullied. I feel like this stems more from like a man perspective.
Okay.
Because I know girls can be like a lot more cutthroat when it comes to the bullying. A lot more of it's behind closed doors. And I find guys and girls have completely different like emotional intelligence levels. Yeah. I think a man needs to learn how to be strong. And a woman should be kind of like protected. Okay. So in terms of like when I say bullying should come back, this is more speaking just for like boys will be boys.
For men.
Yeah.
For boys.
If you have a problem with somebody, let's solve it. Because when we were in school, I don't know about you guys, but like I know you're a little older than me, but any single person that I would like end up fighting, it'd be like, okay, we good? We're good. And then 1 week later, it'd be like, yo, want to go like get dinner? Want to like it ended it.
Mm-hmm. That I think changed at some point where it went from, well, I saw it anyways, where you'd see fist fights to then all of a sudden that transitioned over to weapons. It transitioned over to a group of guys beating on one individual off school property, and went to the extreme, right? Like you start seeing more and more of butter knives. All of a sudden, it became a tool, in their in scraps, and so that certainly became a change. I think a lot of what you resonate with and what you talk about is very, I think, 1950s. If I would assume, if I lived in that time, I would assume it'd be like that.
I could say that as well, but let's put it back. Even in your case scenario, weapons are being brought, you'll get stabbed. I still think it should be brought. Don't put yourself in that situation. Don't. That's the real world. Go walk downtown Toronto. If you go looking for trouble and you don't know how to get yourself out of trouble, you will get stabbed.
Yeah.
We're teaching these kids how to die.
Yeah.
More or less.
So your belief system is like the dog eat dog.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it's like dog eat dog. Is murdering bad? Yes or no?
Well, of course.
Is rape good or bad?
Bad.
Is it still getting done every day?
Yeah.
So as much as we can tell people, oh, don't be a murderer or don't do this, it's still going to happen.
Yeah.
So why are we trying to act like these kids? It doesn't exist in the world. And then they get to the real world and it's like an instant shock. They have no idea how to handle it, get themselves out of the situation. It's like we're censoring and shutting down what actually happens outside of high school.
Now, do you think that bullying has stopped entirely? Because it's funny, I was talking to a father of a child from my dojo yesterday at the dojo, and we were having a conversation around bullying, and he was telling me that he has 3 kids, and at all 3 levels, he's experiencing bullying with his kids. And I used to think too that it had stopped, but now I have my kids in the school system. My daughter's experienced it herself recently. I don't think it's stopped. I think that maybe there's a lot more awareness about a particular group of people that they would perceive as being bullied, but I don't know that it actually stopped. I think it's still going on. Maybe there's some people that are like off limits, protected in its entirety, but
I do agree with you there. Like, obviously you're not going to being able to stop making fun of someone. And this could be, again, because I can't speak because I'm not in high school anymore. And I don't really know many high school students. But I feel it's becoming a lot more like hidden and private attacks via the internet.
Oh, for sure.
So internet bullying, I think that's
absolutely.
That one's a harder one. But at the same time, it's still going to raise the kid's self-esteem. Hopefully.
When you talk about that, I watched my son, his school. My son and daughter went to the same school, and my son being younger, and at one point there was a group of kids that created a Snapchat group talk, but they invited a whole bunch of people, and they invited intentionally. These kids had invited a group of kids that they want to bully, and it was so vulgar. It was disturbing. It was unlike any bullying that I'd ever seen growing up. And the things that they knew about the kid personally, this young kid had some mental health issues going on. They knew about it, and then they thrived in that moment to attack this kid, and it could have ended a lot worse than it did. But
that sounds terrible.
It was disturbing to me because it wasn't like the fist fights that you're talking about and then it's settled. It was malicious intent over and over and over again, and intentionally inviting this one particular kid into this group chat just to go after them. And what I found really disturbing was that the kid themselves didn't say anything about it, didn't withdraw themselves from the conversation. They actually participated in it and tried to reason with these individuals that were bullying them. And it was just a whole other level of this cyberbullying, if you will, that I'd never seen. It was, it was disturbing, to say the least.
That's hard because it goes into like a lot deeper in that, because obviously I'm talking from just a general context of like not having any mental problems or being like any bit slow, and like all the bullying that got done in our school, at least we're all kids that were competent. So it's like, where does that bullying stem from then? Does that come from the new generation of parents not hitting their kids? or actually disciplining their kids to have genuine respect for, it's like, okay, there is, like you said, some people that are off limits in this. Like, where does that come from?
My personal belief system is that, from what I've seen, is that there's a lot of parents today that are genuinely afraid to be a parent. They try to be a friend and don't give their children structure or responsibility or consequences to their behavior. I know growing up, I mean, if I was disrespectful to, an elder, for instance.
Anyone.
My God.
Man.
I'd be told.
I bet you never did it again.
Yeah. And so there's certainly a different, I think, belief system when it came to that, in my generation anyways, for sure there was. And it's interesting because you try and instill as a parent, like I've tried to instill that in my children, and it works to an extent, but then they get to a certain age where they have this belief system that it's like, screw you, I can do what I want. And so then you have that dynamic, right? And that becomes a challenge because it's they don't necessarily see the consequences of long-term, their consequences of their behavior. So that's certainly a struggle that I think any parent today has. It's for sure. So your upbringing then, was that the kind of, if you say household, do you have any siblings yourself?
No, I'm an only child.
Only child? And I mean, for parents together? Parents together?
So I do have a very like old school traditional view on like how relationships, how upbringing should be. Because my parents are still together. They're both 70. They had me super, super late. So, I mean, like one story that my mom would always say is like, I bit her once. And like even when she had me, it was this, oh, never touch your child, never. But my mom just came back, bit me just twice as hard back. And she said I never bit her ever again. So like I'm at the age now where like I'm turning 26 soon. And like in the next 2 years, like I would enjoy having a child too. But now seeing the school system, seeing
it's wild.
Like everything to go, like you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. But now to the point that like even if your child was to say, oh, my mommy hit me. You're gonna get your child taken.
For sure.
You're like at a lose-lose situation of raise the most disrespectful, unbehaved, little whatever, or actually discipline your child and risk them getting taken.
It's interesting that when you talk about your age and the parents, they were 45 when they had you, which I think is more common now, having kids in your early 40s, say, certainly than it was years ago. It was 20, 21, 22, 23, whatever the case was. And it's interesting that your thought process on bullying and all of that, when I said you sound very much like a 1950s, it makes sense.
Absolutely.
It absolutely makes sense, which is, pretty interesting too. So your upbringing then, local boy, grew up, got bullied at a young age, and then from there you, grade 11, that's when you start getting into bodybuilding.
Yeah, that's when I started getting into bodybuilding. And just one more thing to touch on my upbringing is my parents did try to have me at 28.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so back then fertility drugs obviously weren't covered by the government. So my mom worked 3 jobs, tried over 12 years to have me, and just didn't happen. Wow. And they finally gave up. And then randomly at like 43, 44.
The blessing.
Yeah, I came. So when I grew up, like my parents did give me anything that I wanted as within reason.
Yeah.
So like obviously if I misbehaved, I was hit. Yeah. If I misbehaved or did something, I was grounded. No phone, no TV. Yeah. Like I was raised like a child.
There was accountability.
Yeah. But on the other side of things, it's like if I asked for something, it would be rare that I wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
So I grew up my whole childhood getting whatever I wanted. And that, as much as people nowadays say, well, you have only child syndrome, you have all this. Yeah. But no, at 18, I got that taken all away. They said, if you want it, you work for it.
Okay.
So then that's when I started being like, shit. So then I started getting this mentality that I will do whatever it takes to get what I want.
Yeah.
And so far, there hasn't really been something that I haven't been able to get.
So the hustle that I've seen with you is, I mean, you're saying your mom had 3 jobs. I mean, that you grew up in that environment where your family hustled.
Yeah.
They worked for what they had or have.
Straight blue collar. Like,
Absolutely.
My dad worked at his own company for a bit, Mitch's Meat Market.
Okay.
And then the casino. And then he lost his company, worked at a butcher shop.
Oh, yeah.
And then my mom worked at like Zerk's Insurance, FedEx, and then started a home daycare when I got born.
Yeah.
So they were hustlers. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like worked. I mean, I say we did well because like we did have a cottage, we had boats, we had 3
Yeah.
cars, all the toys, but it's not like it was handed to them.
No.
They're self-made.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Respect to that. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, it sounds like you're tight with your folks.
Very
Very tight?
My mom's probably my best friend.
Is that
my
right?
dad was raised on like a French military side, so
Oh,
he
okay.
doesn't talk too much.
Oh,
like
yeah?
if I was gonna get kicked out at 18, like he tried to when I started steroids.
Is that
On a
right?
different side. My mom's like, "You're not kicking out our only son."
Now, is this French-Canadian or?
French Canadian.
French-Canadian?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And your mom, she French-Canadian too?
No, just straight English.
Yeah. And so I think like most adolescent young boys, they have conflict with their fathers.
Yeah.
And what was that like? Military,
Nah,
French-Canadian father?
I mean, disciplined, but
Yeah.
my mom had the say.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they tried so long. Like that was why I was like always like on that lenient side.
Oh,
of like
gotcha.
my mom's like, no, like we're gonna
Yeah.
do whatever. My mom is the biggest ride or die.
that
If
right?
I were to kill somebody, she'd say, "Where are we hiding the body?"
Is that right?
Yes.
We'll take that out if that ever happens.
We're gonna say that never happened.
Yeah, we'll remove that from the podcast. don't worry, Mama, we got you.
Yeah.
Oh wait, did I become an accomplice by saying that?
I'm pretty sure that's
Where's the
incriminating.
button? Where's the button?
But any problem I've ever had, any trouble I've gotten myself into,
Yeah.
I have been lucky enough to always have that safety net.
She's always had your back.
Yeah, which is also why I think I've been able to push, I guess, a little bit farther or have like a little more quote unquote privilege
Yeah.
as someone else is because as much as like I've failed at everything, it is almost impossible for me to fail.
Yeah.
Because, oh, okay, pack up, move back in with mommy and daddy, regroup for 8 months, and then back out into the real world.
And that's the beauty, though, of having that relationship being so tight and having that support system is that you have an opportunity to quote fail because you have a safety net, and you learn from those failures, and then you grow as a person. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't have that. If they don't make next month's rent,
Yeah.
they're on the street. That's it. So, I mean, kudos to your folks for supporting you through thick and thin and all of that. So what's it been like then? I mean, with, like you said, 18 years old, that's when you started steroids?
Yep.
Was it? What made you want to?
So I competed in powerlifting in high school. When I still did basketball, volleyball, but I knew like I wasn't gonna get any taller, and like I wasn't really enthralled with how these other people were acting, and I'm like, I'm just gonna start bodybuilding.
Cool.
So when I started bodybuilding, I got strong very quickly.
Yeah.
Like I squatted 500 in 6 months of training, completely natural at 16, like video proof on Instagram. Deadlifted 500 within 4 months of training, dumbbell pressing 80s. So my friends were like, man, like you are strong for your age. Like I was going to the gym with someone that's been training for 2 years and I was stronger than him within 3 months. He's like, you should power lift. So I did some digging. Toronto has massive powerlifting high school competitions.
Is that right?
It's not a thing in Ottawa, but in Toronto, these kids like eat, breathe, like die powerlifting. And their gyms are as good as 613 lift in their high school.
Yeah.
Like 10 squat racks, unlimited plates, any machine you could think of. And you just needed a teacher to sign off. So I got a teacher to sign off. Went to high school, compete, broke every record within 1 year. Went back in grade 12, re-broke all the records I broke in grade 11. And I was like, okay, what's next? So went to provincials, won. Went to nationals, won. Then went to Commonwealth Games where I broke the all-time world record naturally for sub-junior 93 kilo class. The all-time world record squat, the all-time world record bench.
Now let's get into those numbers because this is impressive. I don't care of age or not, but the fact that you were as young as you were and you were hitting these numbers. So let's get into that. By the time you started, you said you're 500 plus.
Yeah.
Now, when you got to nationals,
Yeah.
record
About 550 squat.
550.
That was
squat.
the thing, because all of this happened in 2 years. Like I did provincials and nationals right after high school, which qualified me for Commonwealth. And then the all-time world records naturally I was 17 at the time. I squatted 600, benched 340, and deadlifted 600. And that was enough for the all-time world record. I held that for 3.5 years.
That's a lot of weight.
But I also knew 4 people from Commonwealth that got busted for steroids. And
right?
I probably knew 4 more that were taking and just didn't get caught. And then I also won Natural Worlds sub-junior, which means you're under 18 and under.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, like I just broke the all-time world record. I know 4 other people that are taking steroids and just don't get caught. Yeah. I'm like, why don't I just go to a federation that you can do whatever you want? So the only rule after breaking the all-time world records, you have to stay natural for 18 months after Worlds, or you break the world record, because they off-season test you. So you can't basically like compete, then do 10 months of steroids, come off for 3 months before the competition, and then compete. Okay, so I got tested twice after I broke the all-time world record. Randomly, 6 a.m., they show up at your door, pee and blood, because the IPF is very, very strict on that. But I always knew that 18 months was basically me just like getting any research on steroids that I possibly could have. But again, it was 2018. No one was talking about this.
No.
It was like
especially not at high school level.
No, you like read it on a magazine and maybe one person but there was no More Plates, More Dates, Greg Doucette, Boston Lloyd. Like they didn't come out publicly. So I was kind of just going off of.
Well, Rich Piano was, I think, the kind of the OG, if you will, of that world, and I think, well, I mean, definitely 2018, he was. Yeah. He was, I think, the only one probably.
No,
I might be wrong, but
no, there was no info.
Yeah.
But after the Commonwealth and I broke the world record, I'm like, I did what I did naturally, and I'm not going to compete against people on juice naturally, and I'm not going to be a loser and compete on stuff in a tested federation. Those people are just what are you doing with your life? I'm sorry.
So then at that point, do you think that you were self-educated, or did you have some guidance for your first cycle?
I had some guidance. I had a guidance from an IFBB pro in Ottawa that I won't name.
No, fair enough. But so you had guidance, which fantastic that you did. What was that feeling like for you when you first started? I won't say the first injection, but like the first feeling. Yeah, making the
decision. I always knew that fitness was going to be my full-time job.
Did you?
That's why I hated high school, because I'm not doing any of this. I'm going to own my own businesses and just do fitness full-time. And I said that at 14. I have it wrote on a sticky note. My mom still has it. I said I'm going to live in LA, and that's what's going to happen. Yeah. So I just knew that untested, you make money, and naturally you don't. People want to see like specimens. They want to see freaks. They're not going to pay to see a guy squat 300 pounds who's 140 pounds soaking wet. Yeah. So me going on, there was no fear, no scarcity. Yeah. I was just like, this is the start of my life.
I mean, really, when you were coming through high school, you were getting, Ronnie Coleman era of, these freak specimens that are as wide as they are tall.
Yeah.
And crushing these, him specific bodybuilder, but the powerlifting side of 800-pound squat is like, it's there.
Yeah.
So what was that like then when you decided now you've started your cycle? What feeling did you feel at that point? Like physically feel? Were you like, holy shit, where's this been my whole life?
Oh, no, not really. No, because people are like have this, unless you're someone like Bumstead.
Yeah.
You're not gonna blow up like that. And I don't have those genetics.
No. But what I mean is that feeling of the energy, the recovery. Were you drawn to that, or were you drawn to your cycle because of the idea of the long-term career?
It was just the long-term career.
Was it?
Because I didn't have that crazy first cycle that everyone talks about.
No.
I didn't have I stay up all night because I have so much energy. I didn't notice too much. Obviously, my strength went through the roof.
Yeah.
Obviously, my squat went from 600 to 800 within a year of actually taking stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of the energy and the aggression and what everyone says.
No,
I never experienced much of that until I started dabbling and I guess more to the abusing side.
But let's be real though. Your squat started at 600 pounds.
Yeah,
Natural.
Naturally, like within 5 months, it was 500, and then worked up the next year and a half to 620 naturally, and then went to 830.
So for the gym rats out there, like how many plates is that per side?
800 would be 9 plates
Per side.
per side. Yeah, like it doesn't fit on most bars.
Yeah, so the bar is bending obviously at this point.
Well, because
you'd have
to
to use
squat that heavy, you have to use a 55-pound squat bar.
Yeah.
So it's like it doesn't really have much to it.
Superman can't bend it, so
The only way you'd bend it if you threw it off your back and
That's awesome.
miss a lift.
So, I mean, at one point during all of this, did you say, you know what, I'm going to start carrying a camera and documenting this?
Oh, it was funny because I was actually editing a video today. My first ever YouTube video was 9 years ago.
9.
Yeah, when I was 16. Yeah.
Wow.
So I made the same logo that I have now, No Bull, is the video's titled
way.
No Bull, Just Truth. And I was 16 years old in my basement. I was probably lifting weights for 6 months. And I was like, what's everyone? This is the official page of No Bull, Just Truth. Because I find everyone just to lie.
Yeah.
Every fitness influencer, for the most part, just lies to make sales. Yeah. Everyone just wants to put an image that they're not actually like about.
What is it do you mean that they're lying about? Sorry to jump in there, but
an easy way just to explain it to people would be like, I could name 10 influencers that have switched companies in the last 8 months, 4 times, and all of a sudden the products they're taking are the best products.
Right.
It's like, okay, guys, so I'm with blank company. I've been using them for 6 months. This is by far, the flavor, 10 out of 10. And then this company offers them $400 more than this company. Guys, I'm so sorry. Like, this company is really great, but like this company, 12 out of 10 flavor. It's just like, bro, like
they're selling out.
they're just,
more
it's
of a
like
more of a
anything to
seller.
make $1. And it's just like, even coaches are like, this guy's going to go pro. This guy's going to be an IFBB. Bro, you're just trying to make a sale. The guy looks like absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
Like, come
So
on.
At 16 then, Mark, how were you able to differentiate the truth and the BS that's out there? Because 16
That's what I wonder too.
Yeah, like because at 16, I know that I was reading Flex magazine, and at 16 I was looking at Muscle and Fitness and being like, oh, I just have to take creatine and then I can look like that. My poor parents, I convinced them. I was like a salesperson to my parents. Oh, I need to buy this protein, Mom, and Dad, can you get me this creatine? I'm gonna be this. I'm healthy. I fell for it all.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's like, I'm like, am I just different? Because like, I'm like, God, like everyone must know that. But I've always looked at things from a sales perspective. Anytime anyone has ever told me anything, I'm like, okay, what's in it for you?
Do you think that was part of with your dad with the butcher shop, having his own business? Do you think that was there conversation at home talking about business?
No, I didn't even know he owned his own business until we like found a sign behind our fridge when I was like 18.
No way.
So your dad, you guys never really talked about business?
No, we
or
barely
anything like that?
talk.
I mean, I'm assuming he probably worked a lot, or
Yeah, he worked nights.
Okay.
When I was a kid, he worked at the casino at the end of his career.
oh right, you mentioned because he was military, right?
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah, so like
Okay.
he at the end he worked at the casino Lac Limi, so he would work all night, sleep all day. So like I rarely saw my dad.
So you really, got to know your dad more as a young man when you became a young man.
Yeah, but even now he doesn't have much emotion.
Is that
like
right?
I would strive to be my dad because like nothing phases this man, like at
Just
all.
stoic.
Just very like he. I don't know if he does have
stoic,
problems or not, but I'm just like anything that happens in this guy's life, he's like,
Is he read? Does he read?
No.
Like, no. Okay.
nothing.
He's just like. Psh,
Just like nothing phases him at all, which is very cool to see.
yeah.
It's interesting because, your father and I just lost my father, but he was 75 and it's very close in age. And my father's same way. My dad, there could be a bomb going off in the backyard, and he would just casually say, oh, "Okay, well, we got to walk out the front door now."
Yeah.
Very chill about stuff. It was just very, very chill, and in the same manner, like I wish I was non-emotional in those sense. But my dad was very connected with emotions. Don't get me wrong, like very connected. My father and I had wonderful conversations about life and maturity and growing up. And as he was not doing so well with cancer, and we were spending a lot of time talking about that, that's when I start really seeing like the intricate part of my dad's life and how his brain worked. And it was very fascinating to me to, again, connect on a whole other level with my father. But growing up, it was the same thing, like just very, like, heaven forbid I did something wrong. I knew that there was levels to it. It was my mom would deal with it. And if my dad dealt with it, oh shit. Like,
if your mom asked your dad to get involved, then you're like, shit. Like,
okay, so we say
my mother would never. My mom would, first of all, my mom would be watching this. My mom would never. She's just over 5 feet, 5'1". I was scared shitless.
Yeah.
Like, she would get on a stool to smack me in the face if she had to. No, my mom would not ever ask my dad.
But if dad decided to step in, though,
my dad never laid a hand on me, but my dad, it was, and I don't know, I respect both my parents immensely, but the respect for definitely with my dad was just at this level where just him talking to me was enough. Just I didn't want to disappoint him. Yeah. Not that I want to ever disappoint my mother either, but my dad, I just never wanted to disappoint him. So I knew what his struggles in life, and I knew what he had done in his life to create the life that I had. And I just had such respect for that. So
I think in the common, because what you were saying, Mark, is and I think you used the term stoic. And for people that don't understand Stoicism, is basically it's the principle of generally towards the men of being able to internalize your difficulties and your traumas and essentially be the anchor that deals with it, but without unloading. You're the shield essentially of the family. And I think, could that be maybe where our society has a little bit of a collapse, is by destroying the nuclear family, by destroying the stoic father, which you always hear about it from our generation. It was like mom dealt with stuff, but like if it got to dad, it's like, oof, there was none of that. And it never really got there. Just the idea of it was something. And I think like we probably don't really have that anymore. I mean, right?
Yeah. Don't get me started about how the families are run now, but I mean, that's a tangent and a half. But at the same time, like back in the day, like the men used to run the household. Which, in my opinion, you say I live in the 1950s, but I do, and that's like how I will.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it disrespectful.
No, I wish I was born back then, because if my wife works, she won't be there. She's not going to work. Like, I'm going to be the man of the house, which I'm more or less kind of in that position now. That it's like, whoever I do end up marrying won't have to work. They will sit at home and raise the family the way that our beliefs would raise a family.
And I think it's fair to say, because anybody who hears that can automatically go up in arms and be like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not. I think what Mark is promoting here is more, it's a choice, is that you want to attract a woman that doesn't feel like she has to stay at home, but chooses to stay at home and wants to raise the children and wants to be the mother while you want to be the father, because there's two people in collaboration working together that want to have a family unit.
Yep, exactly.
Fair?
Very well put.
And because the interesting part with that is that, like, anybody who knows me, I'm in the polar opposite end of that spectrum. My spouse is a doctor. She's a brilliant mind. I am legitimately so enthralled by her intelligence that I absolutely love it. I love, and those that are watching right now that don't know, but Dr. Lena, who's at the clinic here, it took a lot of convincing after opening this clinic to have her come and work here. Because she's like, hon, I don't know if we should work together. I don't know this. And she was at another clinic and working, but she's so brilliant. I wanted that here, because part of this clinic, of course, you want the best. You want the best practitioners, and so for me, it was important. And so I've loved watching her career and watching her go through board exams and and sitting there and studying with her and feeling the most inadequate person you can feel, trying to pronounce medical terms. And like, and I'm just a straight shooter at that.
You're playing the tambourine, brother.
Oh,
wait, can I jump in on here and tell you
yeah.
the most, because I literally just heard a comedian talk about this. Hilarious. He's saying relationships are like a band, you know?
Yeah.
He goes, you're not equals, forget equals. That doesn't exist, man. He's like, there's everybody. There's the lead guitarist, there's the drummer, and then there's the tambourine. But he's like, at some point, he's like, that's going to switch. The roles will reverse. And if whoever's playing the drums or whoever's playing the guitar, he's like, nobody likes to hear a pissed off tambourine player, because if you hear them, you'll know they're screwing it up. So it's like, if you play the tambourine, you better fucking play it like you like it, motherfucker. He's like, while that person's playing the guitar, you're supporting it. So I think that's why I always say, I always hear that. Yeah. But I think with you and Alina, like,
well, I think for both of us, we've both had successes in life, and
but that role it evolves.
There's momentum for us. Like, we both are. I'm very business oriented, and she's very medically oriented. So for us, that synergy in the clinic here is, it for me. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's
you guys have a great situation. How you guys do it?
It is really cool. You know, it really is. But I've also been in the situation too in relationships where, you know, the young family, the mother who's working part-time, and then, you know, that's my ex who, you know, we have 2 children together, and then she went through school and redid school again, and then got a career of her own and all of that. But you know, there was that dynamic too, and it's a different dynamic as well, right? So but I think, just back to your comment about wanting to be able to provide, I think it's ingrained in most men. I think that
I would say before,
it's human nature, man. Like you can't deny it.
I feel like they're trying to push this whole 50-50. I mean, women, from what I've heard, started working just to tax 2 people instead of 1.
Oh yeah, well that's
That
all.
was
Yeah,
the whole like mind game behind that. And like, you could ask any woman back in 1940, 1930 what they want to do, and they want to have a child, stay home and raise it and look after their mom. So all these girls that are saying, I want to be a boss bitch, go out, make $100K a year and do all this, just saying that because society has pushed them into this?
Yeah. Well,
like,
I think,
where has that motherly instinct gone?
Yeah.
But let's be honest. I have taken mat leave for both my children.
Yeah.
That is the hardest job I've ever had.
Oh, it's crazy.
Life. It is.
Yeah.
Like, let's be completely honest. Raising children is, it's so challenging.
Yeah.
Every single day it's different. Every single day there's new challenges, and it's unbelievable. It really is.
I think if we just look at it as a society, we stop diminishing things that people are doing as a whole and just mind our own fucking business. Yeah. I think that the society would be at a better place. But to Mark said, if you trace back the origin of any movement, trace back to the origin and then go find the funding. Because when those people are standing in front of Congress or standing in front of any group, they are being funded by something. Go back and find the funding for the origin of any movement, and there you will have the intention of why they were having it. Yeah. And I'm not going to make a statement on it, but I'm in support with what Mark's saying.
Because it's money.
Look at your homework. Do your homework.
Yeah.
And that's why they want to destroy the nuclear family and so on.
And I don't know if I think like that on the same reason that I think like I did when I was 16. Yeah. It's like I see the sales side of everything. Yeah. And I see like if you can rip a family apart, you're going to get more money. Like,
more money.
Exactly. Yeah. If you have a super healthy family that's running on a unit, the man is paying the one set of taxes. I mean, the government is going to make half the amount of money. If your woman is staying home, is your kid going to go to preschool? Probably not. Yeah. And given the circumstances now, is like my wife probably will homeschool our kid, and it will have play dates to like learn how to socialize. Yeah. Because I don't want like the schools ingraining my child's mind. And I only speak like this on the last probably year and a half. Yeah. 1, from traumas that I went through. Okay. And 2, just because I'm at that age where it's like, I feel I finally grew up. Because if you asked me at 18, 19, 20, I wanted 30 hot girls around nonstop. And that's the only reason why I worked. That was the only reason why I wanted to be like wealthy and popular, was to drive fast cars, live in big houses, and just have that like status of having attention.
So let's get to that. Because you have had a hell of a ride.
Yeah.
So let's
get into that.
Let's talk about that then. So yeah, status and having all the pretty women around you. And so you set all these records, you get into the bodybuilding culture as a whole, and YouTube, 16 moving forward. Then all of a sudden you start getting more and more followers. At what point was it that your YouTube really took off? You have how many followers now on YouTube?
YouTube, 80,000.
Yeah,
It's not bad.
80,000. Between 2021 and 2022, I was averaging 150,000 views a video. So that was good. My top viewed video is 2.2 million.
Wow.
That's what took off. I have
What was that
7 videos over 700,000 views.
Wow.
But unfortunately, like, I'll get into this a little later,
Yeah.
but I stopped making content that people wanted to see and the content that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it plummeted.
Interesting.
So that's what I'm saying in 2023, I'm going to get back to what was actually getting views, even though I don't really like doing it.
Well, 'cause you're
it's
gonna monetize
business.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
Because the best currency is eyeballs. Like, people are like, oh, do you want dollars, pounds, euros? I just want people.
Yeah.
Like, as many people to reshare posts. I don't care if I'm liked, disliked. I'll say what I'm unapologetically myself. And if you don't like it, you don't. And if you do,
So
you
explain for those that don't know YouTube and don't know how to really thrive in that world. Why do you want that?
It's mostly YouTube doesn't really pay that much unless you're going to make kid content.
Yeah.
If you're going to make Mr. Beast content, you can make like well into $60,000, $70,000 a month if you're doing popular videos. If you're going to make steroid based content, like any political content,
niche.
any type of content that you wouldn't really get love and hate for, YouTube will make sure that you don't get paid because they don't want that content on the platform.
I mean, that's what happened to Nelk Boys,
Yeah,
right?
the Nelk had to come off.
Nelk
The Tates got banned. Nico, like everyone
sure.
that always was controversial. But at the same time, that allows you the avenues to open your own companies.
Yes.
So like you have to be very, very smart because I always saw, kind of like when I was 16, I saw like mega 10, 20 million follower people living in their mom's basement, driving around a 2002 Toyota Camry. And I'm like, if I had like 100,000 followers, I probably wouldn't work anymore because I'm smart enough to be able to monetize it. And even all these people that are doing social media now, if you walk into any gym, there's 20 tripods with 17-year-old kids trying to make this. It's like, so like, what's your end game? Oh, I'm just gonna get followers. Yeah, but like, how are you gonna make money? YouTube's gonna pay me. Well, YouTube doesn't pay anymore.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just like, so I'm gonna do YouTube, but I'm still gonna work my McDonald's job, and then they end up just quitting because they have no like full plan. To do YouTube, you have to be a numbers person and a business person.
So, and listen, you and I have kind of crossed paths in the gym, and we know each other very, very, like, we don't know each other all that well. But in the very short time that I've had a chance to chat with you and actually get to know you, you're a smart guy. With the content that you put out, I think you said this to me earlier and it blew my mind because I actually didn't realize people actually think that the persona that you're putting out there is real, is really you. Like it just blew my mind because like when I would see your content, I would actually kind of laugh to myself like it's funny. But people actually believe that's you. Like, is this for real?
Yeah, I mean,
And do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like how people perceive you as a human being based on the content you put out?
Yeah, so I like I said, I strived for having as many friends and having as much attention as possible.
Yeah.
And now I strive for having the same 3 friends and I don't care what anyone else thinks because everyone has a very negative persona on me unless you have actually met me.
Right.
So I have several like hate pages online, 4 pages that are constantly trying to take me down that have never met me in person that only go off of what I show on social media. Now, my whole thing on social media is I show people the good and the bad, which a lot of people don't like because I find Instagram and YouTube a highlight reel of everyone's best self. It's like, hey, look at this Lamborghini. Look at the girls. Look at this. Oh, no, they don't say, oh, I just lost $22,000 on a business deal that went through. And I'm super depressed and I'm like borderline suicidal, if you will, because my whole life has just crumbled. Because that doesn't sell the image. But I'll post everything. So that's one reason why people don't like me, because they're just like, well, he's always up and down. You're not.
Yeah.
Like I'm the same as anyone
Aren't we
else.
all? Aren't we all?
Exactly. The second thing is I'm a very high energy person to begin with, but if I'm at like a 3 out of 10, I'll bring it to a 10 out of 10 for any video.
Yeah.
So it's just like any opinion that I have, I will word it in a way to make you mad. Because what will that have? You will tell your friends. You will reshare it. You'll go share it to 10 other people. Can you believe what he just fucking said? I fucking hate this guy. Cool. You just sent it to 10 people. Even if those 10 people sent it to 2 people each, I have a viral video.
Bad publicity is good publicity.
To an extent.
Well, yeah, it
Yes.
depends on what you value as good. But maybe for eyeballs, if you're going after eyeballs, then that's good. You're going to get your
nothing.
eyeballs.
You really can't. As long as the only issue now is I have been saying, when I started the YouTube channel, I said I'm going to be unapologetically myself. I don't care what I say. Whatever happens, happens. For me, it ended up just taking off. Where a lot of people that already have the eyeballs, they can't say that.
Well, it comes back to what Mark and I had talked about before, and I was telling him about when I got into business. Seth Godin, who I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but he's a marketing guru, and he created this theory, the purple cow theory. And the premise is that the three of us are driving the same route every single day, and we see black and white cows out in the field. It's black and white cows. Who gives a shit? We just keep going. But if the three of us are going by there one day and we see a purple cow in the field with all the rest, what do? We take a picture, we tell people about it. So it doesn't matter what it is. We just share that. And it's that premise that gets content out there. So is there, when you say unapologetic, are there anything in your social media career that you look back now and you regret saying it?
No.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Because at the same time, if I said it when I was 18 or 19, I probably meant it. Just because I don't believe it at 25 doesn't mean it wasn't true at that time when I was 18. So why would I look back and be like, I wish I didn't say that? And that's how I felt at the time. Or I broke up with a few girlfriends that I shouldn't have broke up with. And I like look back at that and I'm like, man, like, that was stupid. Like they would have fit all like the criteria that I would have now. But at the time, I wanted some fuck boy, go out and party, spend $10,000 a night, like bullshit life.
Now I got a question for you, because going back to bullying and stuff, and we know that bullying has never gone away. It's still very much a thing. And I think that you could definitely speak to a lot of kids that are going through bullying, because from what I gather, you've got this kind of like ironclad wall between you and anybody else's perception of you. What advice would you give to a kid who would be listening to this, for example, who's going through bullying? What advice would you give that kid to help them deal with bullying outside of just, getting aggressive, but just like in dealing with it, right?
People don't like this view at all. Because if you want out of this life, you can do it tomorrow.
Yeah, of course.
And it's gone forever.
Yeah.
And when you put that into perspective, because for a very long time, I was like, is this worth it? Like when I say like I went through trauma, I didn't go through crazy like parent trauma, parents leaving, getting beat to a pulp.
Yeah.
I didn't think life was worth it. And I wasn't depressed. I was just like, man, this is bullshit. Because this was at a time where like everything in my life fell apart. I was in like a 3-year relationship, bought a house with her, ended up getting cheated on by her with my best friend. Then she moved in with him. I was like so mad that I stopped showing up to work. Guess what happened? Got fired from my fucking job. So I got fired from my job, couldn't make my car payments, couldn't make the mortgage payments because I decided to keep the house. Had to sell the house.
How old were you then, Mark?
19.
19.
Yep. So I'm like, oh, cool. And I had a dog at the time. Guess who didn't want pets? My parents. So then I had to sell like my pride and joy, which was my dog. Then walked around even more pissed off, ended up totaling my car into a wall.
Now that's
all in the span of 2 weeks.
And that's the first car.
Yeah,
I want to get into it.
Oh my God, that was the car?
that was my third car that I totaled. That was the third car I owned. Second car that I wrecked.
Gotcha.
Oh, second car you wrecked.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I started to think, I'm like, man, honestly, I have went through so much shit in the last 2 weeks. I'm just like, there's no way that like this is all real. Yeah. Like that we're actually sitting here, that like we have to go through this. I'm just like, I could just kill myself tomorrow. And I guarantee you there's something better on the other side. I didn't want to kill myself because I didn't want to be here. Didn't want to kill myself because I was depressed. I honestly like thought that like when you die, obviously that DHT or DMT is released in your body. I'm just like, you probably just go into a different dimension and it has to be better than this. So I got obsessed with death to the point that I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I did that for like 6 months. I would watch videos on death, what happened when you die, people that died and came back to life, saying it was the best experience. I was like fully gonna kill myself because I was just like, yo, this is like pointless. I'm just like, I could live so much better somewhere else. Why would I put myself through all this shit here? And I was just like, why on earth would I kill myself when I could just live as recklessly as possible and not care if I die? Drive crazy, go on trips, take unnecessary risks, and live the most crazy life I could possibly live here. Because if I want out, I could just die. And
so this was your reasoning, obviously,
this was my
for not
reasoning of not caring what anyone thought anymore. Not like, if I want to go somewhere, go. If you want to do something, do it. If you want to say something, say it. I don't have any filter. I'll tell people exactly how I feel, because if I died tonight, I'm gone. And tomorrow the sun's still going to come up. People will be sad for a week, 2 weeks, and then it's like I never was even here.
So did you have a plan yourself for suicide?
No, I just got so invested in like what happened when you died. That like I was just like, man, like I could just do this. And
so you were just intrigued in the concept of death,
of not being here. Like, is this a virtual reality? Is this just a big video game? If you kill yourself, do you just wake up again and it just continues the cycle?
Groundhog Day.
Yeah. So it's
But
then when I realized that I had nothing to lose, because we technically all have nothing to lose, that's when I just stopped caring what anyone thought, stopped caring about what people thought about me, and then just like, yo, I'm gonna live exactly how I want to live. No one, my parents, people, no one is going to tell me what to do anymore.
Do you still believe that you don't care what people think, and does that still include your parents?
Yep, absolutely.
Because you're so close to them.
I'm very, very close, but like my parents basically hated every choice I've ever made, if that makes sense. Because again, my parents worked blue collar. They got very secure jobs, had pensions and all this. And I'm like, I'm not going to school. I'm like, I didn't even want to be in high school. I'm just like, I'm not going to school. Well, what do you want to do with your education fund? I'm like, take it. I don't need it. So like they took most of my education fund because I'm like, I'm not going. They're like, well, we'll keep it because you have to go. They were constantly trying to push. I'm like, listen, I don't care what you have to say. I'm going to do what I want to do. It's
also a generational thing too, right? It's I think all of our parents are in and around that same age group, and the reality is that they grew up with this ideology that you get a secure job, you get a pension, you get benefits, whatever the case is.
The internet didn't exist.
There's that, And
so to tell my parents, who are like, they were 50 at the time, or 55, 60, that I'm going to make money on the internet.
That's crazy.
That they just got internet on the AOL dial-up system 5 years ago. They're like, beep, 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 beep. And I'm like, I'm going to make money on that. They're like, yeah, okay. So where are you going to school? Like, where are you going to get a job?
Right. Yeah. They couldn't conceive or interpret
until it happened.
Right.
Until I started getting the traction. And then when I started making more than they made, they are still in disbelief, but they're like, they take more financial advice from me now, if that makes sense.
So do you think that it's now flipped to where they actually respect what you've been able to do with this internet thing?
Yeah, they're one in disbelief, but two, they every day they're just like, can't believe it.
Do they watch your content?
Sometimes.
Do they?
Yeah, they don't have Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok.
Yeah.
They only have Facebook.
Is that by your choice?
No, they just don't know how to use it. My mom just got a phone last year.
Is that right?
She didn't even have a phone. So anything I repost on Facebook, they'll see. Anything that doesn't go on Facebook, they don't see. So I'm very selective with Facebook.
If you want the slightly dumbed down version of his content, you check Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. The super PG, like,
That's awesome. Mom approved content.
Yeah, exactly.
We have the Mark Plummer fake Facebook account for mom and dad.
I love it. Yeah.
Speaking of that, when my parents got their first cell phone, they figured out how to text. I don't know if your parents went through this, but my God, my phone just didn't stop. It was like,
my God.
Ding, ding, and a new emoji and a new update. I'm like,
oh no, not the emojis. Mom emojis.
I had a full conversation of emojis one time with my mom. It was amazing. And she didn't know the backstory to some of the emojis either, right?
Oh, no.
My dad's sending like,
did you get the peach?
Eggplants and stuff. And I'm like, what are you saying?
Oh my God. Like, what are you saying you did to my mom on the weekend?
Wait a minute.
He's like, no, I knew, son.
Yeah. The wink emoji's next. So you went through all the through all of that, and the back to the whole. Because I love the fact that the unapologetic approach, like you're just a straight shooter, say it how it is with yourself, and you go through this breakup, 19 years old, and lose the house, the car, the dog,
the job,
the
best friend,
the best friend,
Not so best friend. Not so
yeah,
best friend.
exactly.
no, exactly, back to square one.
Yep, moved back in with mommy and daddy.
Yep.
Like I said, unfortunately.
What I wouldn't even say unfortunately. I mean, it's a lesson learned, right? You're moving and just not in the same direction you want to.
Yep.
But you're still moving. So you become obsessed with death and dying. What was it that stopped that for you?
It was basically just like that I could die. Like the whole living recklessly thing.
Yeah.
Is that I'm like, am I going to sit in my basement and dwell on this? Or am I going to get out and just do whatever I wanted? And I can't lie, like I don't do it now. It's still the same mindset that I have now. Like I don't care to die. I'm not really scared to die.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how censored this is, but like I've taken random drugs from strangers just to see what will happen at festivals.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I bought a 1,000cc sport bike for my first ever motorcycle and just ripped that thing at Mach 5 speeds. And I wear shorts, Jordan, and a tank top and a helmet. No gloves, no gear. I'm not like that. I just literally live to live, if that makes any sense. If I'm upset, especially now, like when I was living before, I didn't really have the funds in order to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But like 2 days ago, I'm like, hey, I want to go to Mexico.
Okay.
I messaged a friend who's also an ex-girlfriend, and I'm like, hey, you want to go to Mexico? We're leaving on the 11th. She's like, sure. Bought us both a ticket. We leave to Tulum. And that's just because I'm a little sad. So I'm just like...
Right now?
Yeah, I have an injury that I'm going through.
Okay.
I had to drop out of a really important competition. And I just launched 2 new companies, and those sales did well.
Yes.
So now I kind of have like brief downtime. And like when I'm working on companies, working on business stuff, I'm not that sad. But now that they're up and running, waiting for the product in, I don't really have anything else going on. That's when like your emotions catch up to you. So I'm just like, what can you do to avoid the emotions? Get on a plane, go somewhere.
So have you ever considered diving into those emotions instead of running from them? Because I think it's clear to say that your coping mechanism is the avoidance. And by doing that, it's almost like a Band-Aid solution for you in the moment.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
So going to Tulum now, Band-Aid solution.
Yep.
So you're bummed out right now. So that's your go-to, if you will. But have you ever really considered diving deep into what those emotions are and the cause of those emotions?
Absolutely not.
No?
I feel it ruined me as a person, to be honest. I've had several exes. My parents tell me as well, like go to therapy, do this. But I love the emotions. I love like feeling inferior because I'll just work 4 times harder. I love having this like super messed up mental state because it'll allow me to push harder and farther than anyone else. If I go into a therapist, and I do think that a therapist could help and like break through emotions and understand, but I do not want to be like content. I don't want to be happy.
But do you think
I want to be grateful, but I don't want to be happy.
But do you think instead of the idea that a therapist is going to remove that aspect of life from you, they're going to help you put things into perspective, and you could be even that much greater of a version of yourself that you're thriving for. Like it might put things into perspective to the point where you just thrive that much more. Do you ever think of it in those terms?
It could be, but it's just like a gamble that I'm not willing to take.
It's like, you know, the irony is like, I think I didn't live how you lived, but in my younger days, like I had a rough childhood growing up, and I always had a chip on my shoulder. I always had something to prove, and I fed off that. And the most success I've ever had in my life is when I would work for somebody who they identified that in me, and they would just kind of poke that bear, and then I would just come back, and they would use that to the corporate's advantage, right? The corporation took advantage of that, and rightfully so. I mean, I was an employee, I was hired to do a job, and they made sure that I did that job, and I did it very well. But I did go through all the therapy, and actually, ironically, since I've done that, I've grown. That part of me is removed, but actually the beast actually is bigger, because now you're not doing it to prove a point. You're doing it for something bigger. You find a new purpose. So for me, it's my family, my kids. So that, because there's a part of you that's always going to be a beast, but that beast, what you feed that beast will change. And when you change it something that's a healthier food, then the beast is healthier. Yeah. If that's worth anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I do see both perspectives.
Yeah.
And I wonder if as I get older, like than 25, does that change?
Yeah.
Like when I do have the family.
I think the kids are going to be the changing point.
Is it like, because again, I want to have kids by 30.
Yeah.
So it's like in the next 5 years, like the person that I was at 18, like I said, like parties, drugs, well, not 18. I took my first sip of alcohol at 21. I would say right when the YouTube took off. Which was
21.
Yeah,
because I thought I was
because I was gonna be a bodybuilder. So like through high school, I never touched drugs, never drank, never did anything.
You caught up quick.
Yeah, so that's why people are like, oh, you went so hard from like 21, end of 21 to 25. I didn't get my like teenage years because I truly thought I was gonna be Mr. Olympia.
Yeah,
like, dead ass, like 16, 17, 18, 19. Like I truly believed that I could do whatever it took to get there.
And what's
that was
changed?
my mentality.
What's changed?
Genetics. I like that was the only part where I was delusional. I'm very in touch with everything. I was not in touch with like, I do not have the genetics to be a mass monster. I don't have the genetics to be that big. And that kicked in at like 20, 21. I was like, okay, there's not a chance, no matter how hard I work. It's just like, people are like, if you're 5'5", you're not going to be an NBA player. Maybe you're Nate Robinson, but like most, like 99.9%, you're not going to be.
Right.
And at 21, I realized, okay, I'm very, very strong, but there's 0% chance I'm going to be an IFBB pro. And nothing pisses me off more than all these guys in the gym. I'm going for my pro card next year. Bro, you came 6th last year. Shut up. You're not going to go pro, unfortunately. I love the drive. I love the passion, but you have to be realistic with like what's possible for your life.
But thinking of, IFBB Pro, you won the last show you're in. Mm-hmm. You look phenomenal. And like, I don't know if it's fair to say, I can't say you weren't committed to the prep, but your prep was pretty wild compared to a lot. I think during that prep you did, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did, you went to Miami, partied, you ordered, 1,000 chicken nuggets from McDonald's for Uber Eats, and it showed up to bottle service.
Yeah.
So so when we're talking IFBB Pro and we're talking about the dedication that goes into it, and then Mark Plummer shows up and he's at a bar partying, having booze, bottle service, and has Uber Eats show up with 1,000 chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
If you dedicated yourself to something like that, what would that look like for you though?
I did kind of do that though, because like 18, 19, 20, I did that.
Yeah.
So like 18, 19, 20, there was no partying. There was no drinking. I had no money. Like it was just eat, sleep, go home, work out. That's it.
Yeah.
Coached by IFBB pros. Like I did everything right. And if you look at any good IFBB pro, and like let's just take the Ottawa people, Chris Bumstead, Ian Valliere, London, Ontario, Regan Grimes. They did regionals, 1, provincials, 1, nationals, pro card. Maybe give or take 1 or 2 shows in there because Chris lost North Americans, went back, got pro card. But any good pro went pro in 4 or 5 shows or less. Any pro that I know that took 5, 6 years to get there is cool. You have the card. You've lost every single pro show. Your age is slowly tapping out. Your legs are slowly going. So like when I dedicated 18, 19, 20, and a bit of 21, and like I still was not even close to these guys. Like,
but I think to keep in mind when you're talking about that age, I mean, you mentioned Ian. Ian was the youngest on stage at his first Olympia, significantly younger than anybody else. but he was still a couple years older than you are right now. And it took him a lot of years to get there. And the dedication is next level for him.
Yeah, he's a robot.
You know, absolutely robot with that.
Perfect robot.
Yeah, he's a freak.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, there's such thing as muscle maturity, and I mean, all of us know that's a thing. And when you look at muscle density of, say, Dexter Jackson, who, you know, going through their late 40s and is just this perfect specimen and wins.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between an 18-year-old that kind of is half-assing it to
18 I didn't half-ass.
No. I
was,
mean,
like, after
I'm not
that.
talking you specifically, but I'm talking in general, like the idea of being 18. Because what I'm referring to is all the people that you're talking about at 18. I'm gonna go get my pro card. It's like, dude, you don't have a clue.
I'm more talking about the people that are like 30.
Okay.
Like 25 to 30.
Okay.
They've competed in 10 different shows and they always lose.
So
or they're like third. And
so your business mind, though, this is what I'm intrigued by, is that you're so business minded with everything that you do, though. Why wouldn't you just do it for the business side? Because look at how many people that have their IFBB pro card and they maximize that title for business.
It makes sense.
Would that be something that would push you to do it? You don't have to be Mr. Olympia, but you get that pro card, and what opportunity do you have now that just opens up from there? Because you'll probably, fair to say, you'll be the most controversial IFBB pro that's out there. Fair to say.
No questions.
You can certainly maximize the effect of that. And I mean, any show that you go to, just go to the expo. You imagine the sales that you could get, the lineups you could get for
That's
that.
very true.
I just want 5% of this because I'm coming up with it right now, Mark. So
he's getting the lecture. He's getting the dad talk.
Dad talk here. Mark, I believe in you, man.
But at the same time, like, we have to argue the standpoints is like Mr. Olympia is still less popular than, okay, mind you, Chris is very popular, but like Phil Heath is less popular than most of the fitness influencers, to be honest with you. Like, if you look at Jesse James West, if you look at even like some of the smaller ones, Anthony Montello, any of the guys that I like, Jesse James, a lot of the other ones I don't like, but they're still popular than the most popular IFBB.
So imagine being the IFBB pro Mark Plummer with the business sense you have, the YouTube sense that you've had since 16, and what that would look like.
The platform it would give you.
True, but if we look at things from a business standpoint, you're like cutting your market in half. Because if you have 100%, probably 50% want to compete, and then 20% want to compete at a high level. So if you're only going to be posting, eating 6 meals a day, looking good, most likely to a physique that they'll never be able to achieve in their whole life, you're just going to lose like the track of people. Because again, like I said, people reward the bests, right? So like Chris Bumstead has the best physique in the world.
Yeah.
Everyone below Chris Bumstead, obviously like the Colombian guy or Urus are popular, but not even close to Chris because he's the best.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I know that I'll never have that best physique. And I'm also 5'6", 5'7".
Yeah.
So like I won't even be able to get to like Jay Cutler's overall like density size.
But even when like Breon won Olympia, Chris was even more popular than him at that time, and he was number 2.
Agreed. But you could argue that Chris like had a better physique at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I might be biased to that, but for sure, I
dabbled
do.
more in social media. I know a lot of all these people too that are trying to get pro cards, that they do have that mindset of like a pro card makes or breaks everything. But at the end of the day, like the card doesn't really do much.
But it also comes down to motivation in the end, right? Like, do you have the drive and the motivation to do you have the motivation to do that particular thing? And I think what we're seeing in this conversation is you just don't see the value in it. Otherwise, because I think if you tried to pursue it, you're a pretty talented guy. You're pretty smart. I think you probably could achieve what you want to achieve if you said, I want that. But I don't think you actually want that per se.
Yeah, I do believe you.
Yeah.
If I were to give up everything, partying, like would I be willing to do whatever it took to get there?
Yeah.
Like, I've do pretty questionable things. to say the least, in order to, like, some of the things that I do, if I told you, you wouldn't believe.
You can say it.
Okay.
This is not. This is unfiltered.
Okay.
So let's get back to the purpose of this podcast.
Yeah.
It's for I love that he just stretched. He's about to say something. Yeah. I love it. But the whole purpose of this podcast was because the two of us wanted to have unfiltered, authentic conversations with people. We wanted to cut through those layers and have true conversations. We wanted people to be brutally honest.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And if people want to listen to it, they can. And if they don't want to listen to it, they could just hit the off button.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about it. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like, for my whole life, I was like, I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I don't care if it's legal. I don't care if it's borderline not legal.
Yeah.
You have to find the loopholes. I'm not saying to go commit crimes or rob banks, but to be a regular person in 2023, you will not get ahead. It's impossible. You need to bend some rules. You need to find loopholes. You need to do things that may not be that conventional in order to get ahead. Because like you said, our parents could go collect a pension, buy a very affordable house, have $500,000 of equity in that house, and they're pretty good.
Yeah.
For my generation, that's not possible. So you do need to do whatever it takes in order to get ahead, and then maybe like clean up your tracks a little bit as you get there. My same philosophy went into lifting, especially powerlifting.
Okay.
So like a lot of people are like, oh, your genetics got you to squat 800, deadlift 800, bench 500 at 198 pounds, which is not most likely popular. But when you touch your hand on a hot stove, it teaches you not to do that again. Mm-hmm. If you do something you're not supposed to do and your dad says, don't do that again, you're probably going to do it again. If you do something you're not supposed to do and you get hit, you're probably not going to do it again. So what does our body learn off of? It learns off of like pain sensories or trauma, I guess you could say. So most powerlifting preps, especially this last one that I ended up getting hurt, if I like missed a lift, I would cut a slit in my wrist for every missed lift to teach my body that's like not acceptable. Wow. Like that is the part where I would go to the extreme because I don't care. And if you look at any like Russian Olympic team, like they are beat to death if they miss. And Russians don't miss. So like I'm very believer in like you will learn based off of pain. And the issue that I came to this prep was that I was like couldn't have the same stimuluses that I had when I was 18 and 19 competing for the world championship. Because then I would end up just like sleeping on a concrete floor. I always had this mindset. So if I went to the gym and I missed a lift, I would sleep on a concrete floor that night to like punish myself into not missing the lifts. But as I got into the 700, 800 plus lifts, sleeping on a concrete floor would hinder my performance into competing the next time. Yeah. And I wouldn't be reminded of that pain I felt. So then I would more or less like forget. Because I tried to just sleep outside, put myself in a cold temperature, go jump in a cold pool, a cold lake to like teach. It wasn't enough stimulus for like the level that I was competing at. So the higher the level I got, say I was supposed to do 4 sets of 2 reps at 800 pounds. Yeah. And I missed the last 2 reps. I would go home, take a knife, slit 2 slits in my wrist, watch them bleed, and that pain would be there all week. And all week, all I would think about anytime I moved my arm would be missing those lifts. And towards the end of prep, I would rarely miss a lift.
So where did this come from? This ideology that you, I mean, how do I say that? The ideology behind the idea that you have to suffer in order to succeed.
Because
where did
life.
That? But where did that come from though? Because it didn't just pop in your head one day. It's like what you're talking about is a lot of, I mean, I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of individuals that have that ideology because of being beat as a kid because their father, for instance, would hit them when they talk back. So then they learned not to talk back. So that's not the case with you.
No, it was more just to like do like whatever it took to be the best. And I always knew that anything you wanted was going to be hard. Like you kind of said, like any success is you have to go through like crazy shit to get there. Yeah. And everything has levels. Like even like salary wise, like 100,000 versus 500,000 was immensely harder. Yeah. And like you had to hurt yourself a lot more in terms of like sleeping 4 hours or not sleeping, like abusing Adderall to stay up for 2 days straight. Anything that got you to that next level was a little like nuts. And I see these Russians, and like I have a few Russian friends, and they're like, we don't miss. Because if you miss, like you will feel it. Yeah. Like they don't say like, oh, you tried your best. That is the most biggest bullshit lie I think people are told. Mm-hmm. You should be happy because you tried your best. No, you should not. Because your best wasn't good enough on that day. And again, I feel like that's just setting people up for failure again. And that's also probably why I took having to drop out of the meet so hard, is because nobody puts these expectations on me. Yeah. Like, I don't like have parents that are like, you have to do this. I don't have relationships that are like, you have to do this. I have everyone in my life telling me I shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. And somehow I've just ingrained into my head that whatever I do is not enough. And I need it to the next level. And that's why I said I need to learn how to be more grateful, because for the last 4 years, I was like a douche.
Yeah. In what way?
Like I was mean. Like I was just... Like I took everything for granted. I took people for granted, parents for granted, the money for granted, what I could do for granted, and mixed that with not being happy because I felt like I should be doing more. Yeah. It was like a recipe for like broken relationships, broken families. I got arrested 3 times because I didn't know how to act.
And what was it that's humbled you now?
I don't know if it's like old age. I don't know if it was the last relationship. I don't know if it's like... Before, I constantly looked at other people online. As much as I said I wanted to be unapologetically myself, I had like a different view of what I thought I wanted to be. Because I would look at other people online and be like, that's what I want. Okay. But I never sat down and said, what do I want? Yeah. Like I saw other people getting massively successful online. What are they doing? Parties, bottle service, fast cars, tons of girls. I didn't really see the perfect, healthy relationship getting millions of views online because it wasn't, because 16 to 24-year-old guys don't think of having a wife and a family and a perfect life. Yeah. So then I was just like, so to be successful, I correlated, I guess, my wants into fast cars, big houses, and like the Dan Bilzerian, Andrew Tate's, like.
Yes. And social media does a really good job, by the way, of giving you the content that you're looking at. You know, so you'll have this perception in your view. There could be an entire world out there. Like, I mean, there's like 7 billion people on Earth. And how many people are influencers? I know you hate it, but say they're influencers. Like the content that I see at my age, the majority, I don't see any of the Tates or any of that stuff because that's not what interests me. Yeah. Me, it's like the Jordan Petersons and guys like that, right? And
more like intelligent.
Like, and my feed is like.
Sorry, Andrew Tate, if you're listening.
I love it.
From home in Romania.
Yo, he just got out yesterday, apparently.
He's at home arrest.
Home arrest.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Looks like shit.
I mean, this is exactly why I want to do a podcast. I absolutely love this rawness here, Mark. Like I love it. I absolutely love that you're comfortable enough with yourself to open up, because that's pretty deep.
Like, that's deep.
Yeah.
It is. Whether you think it is or not, it is.
But it stems back to I don't care anymore. Yeah. I absolutely don't care, unfortunately. Because it's like I see anyone that watches this, anyone that hears that, anyone that even saw these and asked, was like, what's that? They actually think I belong in like a mental institution. And I do. But at the same time, I'm just like, okay, you like, not to be rude, but like you work a 9-to-5 job, bro. Yeah. Like you've never achieved anything in your life. And not that there's anything wrong. I do think, like, obviously the world needs people to go to factories, manual labor, do the work. Everybody can't be a business person or our world is going to collapse. Yeah. Just like all these boss bitches, all these girls can't start getting all these crazy careers and start neglecting families, or our entire world is going to collapse. I don't think people realize that like every single person has what they're supposed to do kind of like laid out by the universe. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, why am I going to listen to you when you've never broken a world record? You've never actually pushed yourself to be uncomfortable. Like I see these bodybuilders dropping dead on the daily because they're trying to achieve a level of leanness and taking diuretics that are unimaginable by the mind. And they're 100% okay with that. If you talk to them, hey, you're probably going to die after your next show. Yeah. I would give it maybe a 10% rate that would say, oh, I'm not going to compete. Yeah. I guarantee you these people, because it's happened, all these people like, hey, you have a kidney disease. Hey, you have a heart disease. You have this disease. You probably shouldn't compete. I'm still going to push it. And we'll see what's going to happen after the show. because it's just ingrained in some people's minds that they'll do whatever it takes to get there.
Or where do you see yourself then in 5 years? You want children. You want a family.
I do want children. I'm hoping that the family and children calm me down, because if I don't have it, I'll be dead.
So
I guarantee it.
So do you think that it's going to, do you think that the idea of having a child is the healthiest option when it comes to that child, if that's what your thought process is, that you're relying on them to tone you down?
Yeah. It's hard because I'm a lot more unhinged out of a relationship than in a relationship, if that makes sense. And it's bad because I see what you're saying, that like, I guess I would classify as a borderline personality trait of being dependent on somebody else.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also think that, like, kind of like you said, how your purposes change.
Yeah.
Right now, my purpose is just eyeballs, views, and money.
Yeah.
There is no other need. If something comes into my life that takes over that purpose, which would be a wife and a family, that's when I would make that shift.
I think that makes you like a reactive person in nature. Like you react to your environment. Because I believe there's really two people in the world. And there's not a bad or a good way to look at it. There's those people who are proactive and they'll create their environment. Even though you create, there's proactive create, or there's reactive, as you react to your environment. And that's where, like, you're probably more of a reactive person. Your environment will change, therefore you will react to that environment, and you're going to continue to be great at what you do within that environment. But you need that stimulus to create the response for you.
Exactly.
Right?
Because, I mean, it's all like reading the room. Sometimes there's a time to be the loudest in the room.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a time to be the quietest.
Right.
I'm very good at reading the situations in terms of what's going to get me farthest ahead in life. And you could say that's very like narcissistic or manipulative, but I know how to get ahead in life. Yep. And I'm going to play to those advantages based off of the weakness of the other person.
Well, now, narcissism, very fun, because I know you personally, so maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But to say you're narcissistic is it's a big statement to say, and most narcissists will not
admit it.
Yeah. And actually, I'm pretty sure it's paradoxical. I don't think it's possible for a narcissist to call themselves a narcissist. Because narcissism, usually what happens is you prey on people's weaknesses in order to benefit yourself. I think it's most tantamount core, and you're willing to do whatever it's take. There is a sociopathy to narcissism, in a sense, is you are absolutely unempathetic to other people's needs and you will prey on them. So I'm just maybe stopping you there. I don't know that you're narcissist, but you might be selfish, because people will perceive selfishness as narcissism, but there's a big difference there.
I do agree. I believe I think anyone that's hyper successful, I would argue you're very hyper successful as well as you, because I know your backstories. Yeah. You have to have a little bit of narcissism traits within you in order to get to that level of success. But at the same time, it's like, let's say like I was aware that you were manipulating me. I will let that manipulation happen in order to figure out where you think you can control me into controlling you. Yeah. It's more of and you could argue that this is how I grew up, I always got my own way. I'm very good at getting my own way.
But there's also the difference between manipulation and influence, right? So that's where the narcissism will differ, is a leader will influence, a narcissist will manipulate. Manipulation is we do something to the detriment of you to the benefit of I, whereas influence is I will encourage you or influence you to do something to the detriment of either and to the mutual benefit of both.
Yeah, and I do agree with that, because I've always said, and every single time I post, is I want to see everyone else succeed. I want to be better than all of you, but I still want all of you guys to succeed. Right. Because one crumbled city with one 20-floor building looks cool, for sure. Yeah. But one city that has all 24 buildings and you have a 100-foot building, that's even better.
Right. So that would be more a form of influence than manipulation, I would say. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting way of living your life and viewing how you want to succeed in life, right? It's a very interesting way that I don't think a lot of people see or know that side of you necessarily.
No, I haven't really opened up about this side ever online. They see like the small tidbits of like what I type, which I don't put too much effort into writing. So they're usually like full of spelling mistakes and all that.
Yeah.
But like this is like deep down, like the things that go through my mind of like, I'm never going to be enough. And you could say like, yes, you can fix that. And you could argue that like maybe it will get better. But at the same time, if I woke up every day happy, I'd like probably spend an extra 10 minutes in bed because I'd be like, man, like it's gonna be great. If I wake up and I need this, I will be more likely to get up and be like, I do not care what's going on in my life. I have to get this done.
It sounds more like you thrive on chaos.
Yeah. I think that's a fair.
It's really
You enjoy chaos.
Yeah.
You've lived in
I
it.
I genuinely like it. And in terms of relationships as well, this sucks to say to any like girlfriends, I guess. Yeah. But like I've been with girls that have no drama and you could argue they're perfect.
Yeah.
I'm bored. I'm so bored. Like there's no fun, there's no spark, there's no passion. But then on the other hand, I'm with the girls that would like cut you if you did something bad. I'm like, oh boy, like the passion is they're like going on their creeper account, seeing who you last followed, and if you liked a picture of theirs from 2000, like that's what I like. That's like the fun.
Let's get into that then.
That's awesome.
Take a sip of that monster. Let's get into this one because this is something that I've been intrigued by you for quite some time. This, how do I even say it? When I see you go through your not your past relationship, the relationship before. I don't know if we want to use names or not here. I mean, you're pretty open with names and stuff, but you know who I'm referring to.
Yeah.
That relationship, how long did it go for? Because that was your first probably real serious, like deep relationship?
The first real relationship was my second girlfriend. I obviously had 4 relationships basically my whole life.
Okay, yeah.
Mind you, like some of them were on and off, so I dated in between. I had my high school sweetheart, which was cool. No one dates, or usually you don't marry your high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
The 3-year relationship right after that, which was probably my first real relationship, that's the one I bought a house with and got screwed over.
Yes.
With my friend. Then moved into the next relationship, which was 4 years on and off, which is the one you're probably referring to.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Into this last one, which was only 6 months, 7 months.
So let's go to number
3.
So number 3 now, because I think that's, if there's a kind of a life marker, I think that's probably fair to say that's that point.
That would be the one.
For you.
She's probably the one out of anyone that I'd pick that I'd want to spend my life with. And she was also there during like the biggest growth. Like she was there during when I had to sell the house because I couldn't afford it. She was there during the whole death thing. She was there when I moved back in with my parents, and she was also there with growing to like well into 6 figures.
And then just to give everybody an idea, so that was a 4-year relationship.
Yep.
When did that end?
9 months ago.
9 months ago.
Yep.
Okay. So, and I asked that just because I want to put in perspective that was 9 months ago. You then had a relationship of 7 months.
Yeah, right after.
Yeah. And we're going to get into that. So that we'll put that on the back burner, but everybody keep in mind what I'm getting at there, okay? So you go through this relationship, ups, downs, the highs, lows, everything.
Yeah. All my fault, but
with it.
Mostly my fault. I'm not going to take all self-accountability. But again, I don't know if it's because I never feel like I'm good enough. But like I'm very good at like knowing where I didn't show up.
Yeah. But it's fair to say that there's 2 in that relationship and it wasn't just you.
I mean, you could argue like someone could react better to the way you treat them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like you have to look at the root of the problem, which is why people get mad at me so much, is because they also say I gaslight a lot because I'm always like, well, let's look at the root. Is this stemming from a past trauma? Is this coming? Mm-hmm. But like when you say that to a person, especially in a fight, I could see how it could come off as gaslighting someone into like.
But gaslighting, though, sorry, I need to hear that more, because gaslighting is the paramount. What would you say? The description of gaslighting is you make somebody believe that they're crazy, and then you bear down on that insecurity that you create in them by implanting falsehoods that make them question their sanity. And then that's how you hide the truth, right? Even though truth is in plain sight. So in your relationship, if somebody says you're gaslighting them, were you actually in fact doing that? Were you manipulating them into believing that facts were false and falses were facts, and then you preyed on that? Is that what you did?
Depends on who you talk to, because
no, I'm talking to you.
I know, but what is reality? It's your perception of everything.
So what was your perception then?
I feel that
okay, so do you know the difference between right and wrong?
But like, I'm looking at a standpoint of like, I may think that this is the reason you're acting a certain way. Sure. But if you don't, you're gonna think I'm gaslighting you.
So right and wrong.
Yeah.
Right and wrong. So that's a very easy way to know and to break through any gaslight. So there's right and wrong. So there's infidelity. Wrong or right? Wrong. Yeah. So if you were being unfaithful and the person were to say, well, I saw X activity took place that I have an issue with, and then you would say, oh, well, you always make me feel like I'm not good enough. And, and then all of a sudden you start going around, but we're not on the fact that you did something that was wrong. That's gaslighting.
Yeah. So I've 100% have done
So you have done it. Okay.
Yeah,
and I'm not judging you, by the way.
No. And that's why I come on here, because I do post different things now.
That's fair.
And people are like, you're such a fake piece of shit. And it's like, okay, but when I was 18, well, not 18's bad. When I was 21 to 24, I was a horrible fucking person. Like, I was horrible. I was horrible to any relationship. And I never cheated, but like, I definitely wasn't on the up and up. And like,
did you feel bad when you did those things?
No, not at all.
You didn't have any guilt?
Nothing.
How did you get around the guilt?
Because I didn't think I was doing anything wrong.
So you would sell yourself the idea that what you were doing was acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, truly deep down believe it.
Right.
But this is the difference now, is if you talk to any other person, it's probably acceptable. But in my eyes, it's not. Because like, that's the thing. Going out to a club and partying when you're in a relationship, like, that's a very touchy one. Is dancing with another girl cheating or not cheating? Back when I was 19 or 20, 21, all these guys had girlfriends but would go out and still talk to all these other girls, have all these other girls around, and their girlfriend didn't seem to mind. Mind you, I couldn't justify that these are multi-millionaires, and that they were probably a lot more open about the situation than I was open about the situation. And they can afford a $30,000 table with 30 women, pay for all their needs, all their drinks, and they're there almost for like an image per se. Yeah. Versus I just wanted the attention.
Right.
But at 22, I couldn't.
Well, that's what they want too, though, right?
But at 22, I couldn't justify the difference. I'm just like, shit, like, because they probably just want the image. They don't really care about.
But that's the attention. That image is attention, though.
Right.
It's the status.
Well, it's the raw reality of that is that it is actually attention.
Yeah.
Like, you can have the money to afford to do something. It doesn't mean you need to do it unless you want the attention that comes with doing that, right? So it's that absolutely, regardless of your financial status compared to theirs, it comes back to the core need of that attention and that feeling. I think the common thread through when we've gone from your high school to this relationship that we're talking about is that, and I don't know if you've ever actually been aware of this, but there's a common thread of you sabotaging everything.
Absolutely.
Like, every part of your life. And I would love to dive deeper into that, but you clearly have done actions sabotaging along the way. And is that because, or have you even thought of this, is that that's part of your escape mechanism, that you have a reason for this not to succeed by giving yourself an out? Have you ever thought of it in those terms?
No, I've tried to do a lot of thinking now, because obviously, like, my perception on relationships is different than I was trying to perceive to let on. Because I always flip-flopped. I always wanted that like perfect fairy tale life, but then my actions would never indicate that I wanted that. And like, that was the hard part. But now I've actually like sat down and thought about it. I'm just like, I just had no clue what I wanted. Because back then I didn't overly care for the relationship. I only cared to be popular. And so I would do, like, I guess this stems back to the whole narcissism thing. Is like, I did put somebody, that relationship, in the worst position and probably mental trauma of 4 years of her life so I could succeed.
Right.
Because I got a smoking hot, blonde haired, blue eyed girl that was obsessed with me and would do anything I wanted and would always come back to me. And I just fucked off and did whatever I wanted all the time.
Yeah.
Not to the point of like going to sleep with other girls, but going out to nightclubs, buying the bottles, traveling, just acting like a complete piece of shit behind closed doors, but posting online that I have the best relationship in the world and I'm out having fun doing all this.
Do you think that at any point she was drawn to that,
No.
that lifestyle?
Absolutely not. I just don't think she like had the courage to leave. And like I also view like I was also not in the same, I guess, position or mindset of having any protective or supportive bone in my body. I was too selfish. Even when I did start to make money, I'm like, you're paying half for rent. You're paying this. Oh, you have to pay this. Oh, you didn't pay me for this. Where it's versus now, it's like if she does pay, I would be upset.
Yeah.
So now you made the comment earlier about wanting to have this family relationship, stay-at-home mom where you're paying for everything. Do you think that's you trying to overcompensate for what you did in relationship number 3, where it was split 50-50? Do you think that that's part of that?
No, just because I like when sitting down and like realizing the dynamic that I want, I do want like a very feminine girl. And I've dated the last relationship I had. She did own like a multi 6-figure company, like that did very, very well. And just having that like masculine touch to her in terms of like,
Because of being successful?
yeah,
You feel that
anyone that's successful has to have like a little bit of like savageness or like they need to be able to like turn their emotions off. Because if someone upsets you in your clinic, you can't walk around pissed off all day. You can't go and cry. You can't take it out on the next person. So any girl that's like in a very competitive high-end workforce is very good at turning off their emotions, hiding how they feel, being savage, being like a little more cutthroat, especially if they have employees that they need to put into shape. It's very, very hard, at least from my opinion. Obviously, not everyone's the same, but those girls are a lot more likely to put their man in place.
Yeah, and Jordan Peterson does talk about that, and he talks about women that are in the masculine, in the workforce, and to climb the corporate ladder and so on. It is a known fact that they do have to taper off the softness or some of the things, because women are by nature caregivers, right? And if you have to taper that off in order to climb the corporate ladder and be a little more advantageous, and you're pushing, then obviously, because you're not you can do well for yourself being care of others. Like Mike, your business is pretty much thriving on that. But in the corporate world where it's dog eat dog, I think it's like a law firm or something like that, where it's going to be a lot different. But one question I had for you, Mark, is like, with everything that you say, because I think you've said this before, like you feel like it's never going to be good enough. Like, is it possible, or I'll ask you the question, like, do you feel like you're good enough for a woman? Like, do you ask yourself that question?
Now, yes.
And you feel the answer is yes?
For the last 5 months.
For the last 5 months.
5 or 6 months, yes.
And do you feel...
Any time before that, no. There's no way that it ever would have worked. Like,
so what's different?
I'm just gonna move this a little closer to you there, Mark.
sure.
No, that's good.
So what's different now?
just like financials, really.
Oh,
So-
sorry, 1 second here.
Oh, did we lose a...
Can you push the mic in the back there? Yeah, I think we're good now.
Are we good?
Talking to that mic then?
Testing.
Yeah, there you go. You're good now.
So the difference between being able to be good enough now versus good enough 5 months ago, your answer to that is what exactly?
I mean, let's set from a standpoint of I want to do mindset versus financials.
Okay.
Dating to have fun, dating to marry.
Okay.
And then financials as like a man, I feel like you should be able to take care of almost every problem that person has.
Sure.
And if you can't, then you're doing something wrong. And at the same time, I also know that the expectations that I'm putting on, I guess, my future wife is, I would say, outdated, you could say. And I know that back in the day, a lot of girls would never leave their husband because they'd be too scared to leave because they have no money. And I also don't want a girl that stays just because I have money.
Right.
So I would want to be able to be in a position to basically almost pay her the same salary as she would be working, but that's her salary to stay at home. So if she ever wanted to leave, she could still be like, you know what, you don't treat me good. Because as much as these people come on and be like, I'm the man of the house, I should be able to cheat on you, treat you like shit, do anything because I'm some multimillionaire high status. No, I used to think that way because that's all I saw online. And that's all I saw was successful. But sitting down and being what I want, nothing is more attractive than you being as obsessed with her as she is obsessed with you.
So what I'm really, really interested here is that you said a few things I want to touch on. You just said that you want to be in a relationship where, and you think that being in that masculine, that man position, if you will, that you should be able to take care of everything that she needs.
Almost like if she has a problem, like you should be able to solve it.
So without sounding like the psychologist again here, but I'm going to get into this.
You're going to get dad talked again.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued by this though. But that being said, you've already acknowledged that there's things going on in your life that you need to get resolution in. So how can you be that best version of yourself and give what you want when you're not the best version of yourself starting a relationship, if that makes sense? Like, absolutely.
But when are you ever going to, and at least in my life, I will never be the best version of myself.
No.
Because I will always be a better version 10 years from now. But I'm just at the point now where it's like, I could see myself starting a family, having a healthy marriage. That's like a one-time thing. It's like, don't leave when things get hard and don't have like, my parents, I only ever saw them fight about money.
Okay.
Like financial stuff. And that's also why I put such a balance on money. Because 9 times out of 10, friends fuck you over. Why? Money. Or girls. Business partners fuck you over. Why? Money. Like relationships, divorce. Why do they happen? Money. For the most part.
Money is at the root of many. Or it's not.
Well, it's top 4, I think, when they look at hierarchy of stress
and
in life. I think,
for sure. I think people say, and I should correct myself in saying money is at the root of it. It's not the root of evil. It brings out the evil in people that have it within them, right? Because if I have true friendship and love in my heart and compassion, there could be, $4 million on this table. It does not belong to me. I'm not taking it, right? Yeah. But if I'm a deviant person in nature, it's going to happen inevitably. So I think money is not the issue. It's shitty people is the issue, right?
But let's say your relationship is on rocky terms, or not even rocky terms, and neither of you can afford mortgage that month.
Right.
Do you think your relationship's going to thrive?
It could.
Well, it could.
Yeah. Or it could cause like the biggest.
So I'll tell you what. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No.
But during my divorce and so on, because I was separated, 2 children, I had to file for bankruptcy. And 2 years, roughly 2 years, I was with my current wife for 2 years. And I remember I went up to her and I was like, listen, like I've always done well, man. And people don't know this about me. And now you'll know, like I actually had to file for bankruptcy. It was about 6 years ago or something like that. And I went to my wife and I was like, listen, I'm always going to be able to put food on the table. I'm always going to be able to have everything. But, I'm in a situation where with my divorce, with my father's estate, I got dumped with like something like $500,000 of debt, like bang. Like overnight, I lost everything. Lost everything. So didn't lose everything. I lost everything I thought was important.
That makes sense.
Right? And I found everything, which was my wife and I hunkered down. Our relationship thrived, and then came COVID, right? And all this other stuff happened. But believe it or not, in losing everything, I got everything. So if you're with the right person and things go wrong, you're with the right person. And that's when actually the relationship will thrive. So my wife and I's relationship has thrived in absolute chaos, which is ironic because you like chaos. So find somebody to ride or die with, and you'll get it. Absolutely. Yeah. So just remember that. If she leaves you because it goes bad,
well, she was going to leave for several of her reasons anyways.
Yeah.
And you also don't want to be in a relationship with someone who just wants you because of your financial situation. Yeah. Whether it be positive or not. And sometimes it takes a lot of learning to get to that point that you find that out, right?
I could argue the standpoint is just like, I'm stealing this from someone online about like gold diggers, and obviously
Jamie Foxx.
No, but personally, I wouldn't date an ugly girl. I wouldn't. I don't think any of you guys would either. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
If you are with a girl because she has a very nice body, keeps in touch, big fake boobs, nice butt, her personality is obviously a plus too. And she's with you because you have status, you have money.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's where I feel like the line has to differ, because she's not going to go date some bum that doesn't do anything with his life.
Yeah. I think that in my lifetime, I've also learned that there is something extremely, extremely sexy about intelligence for me. So I think that, for instance, Alina is beautiful, but her intellectual ability is something that, without having that connection to, I wouldn't be in that relationship. I need that intellectual stimulation. I need to be able to sit and have those conversations with her. You know, I remember relatively early on in our relationship, we were driving to Boston, the other side of Boston to this side of Boston to visit her family. And we drove whatever 8 hours it is, whatever it is. The radio never came on once. And we just drove and talked.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we're there. And it was kind of in that moment for me where I was like, shit, like that's something that I need. And I knew that it was important to me from past relationships that either had it or didn't have it. But that to me was the ability to have those conversations. And I already thought she was beautiful. I was already physically attracted to her. Obviously, that's the first thing you see with somebody is this physical attraction. Absolutely. But the idea of having such stimulating conversation that I was certainly intrigued by her brought it to another level for me. And I don't know if you've experienced like that level of a connection. And I don't know how common that is. I know you and Addie have those conversations, and and it's a pretty amazing.
I know what you're
thing.
saying, because like if I could take anyone back, it would be that third relationship and do it right the first time.
Do you talk to her?
Yeah, I try. But,
So
It's sensitive.
it's obviously like for someone that you treated like shit for 4 years, to try to show them like a new version is very. It would take a lot of time for that to obviously take over and like
Or for the trust to be rebuilt.
exactly,
Obviously. Yeah.
But like that's the person that I'm not too much intellectual. Like I like my business stuff. You stay out of my business and my smart stuff.
Yeah.
But like mine more like the universe, like vibrations, like that's my intellectual conversation. I could say like I'm not that religious.
was she that?
Exactly.
And
So
she-
like the whole universe, like the whole the road being laid out for you.
Yeah.
And just like, if trust in the universe, vibrations,
It'll happen.
It'll happen. And whatever happens is meant to happen. Like that was her.
Yeah.
So, and then she also had the same values as if like, she just wanted to be a mom.
Okay.
Like that's like her goal.
It's a caregiver kind of thing.
Yeah. And the most girls now be like, what do you want to be? If a girl's like, I want to be a mom. Whew.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy, because like that doesn't really happen anymore. But
Yeah.
at the same time, especially coming from a small town in Ottawa, how many guys are in the position that could be like, you can be a mom?
Not many.
Yeah, like 2%.
Do you mean financially?
Yeah.
Like being able to.
Not even financially, but just being like competent enough to be like, don't worry, I got it. And also have that mindset of like, no matter what happens, I got it.
Okay.
And that, I guess this also comes back to like me also not feeling like I'm ever good enough.
Yeah.
But if I ever do get left, like it's 100% on me. So it's like if I do like lose my money or like lose the sources of income or have to go bankrupt and like the person I'm with leaves me, like it's my fault. Like why? Like how did I fail? If I get jumped on the street, why was I walking down the street alone? Like anything that has ever happened to me is fully my fault.
Yeah.
And you could be like, trust me, that wasn't no, it's your fault. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone can say anything that's happened in their life wasn't their fault.
No, I think there's a maturity about accepting responsibility for your behavior.
Yeah. But I've taken it, unfortunately, to like the extreme.
Well, for sure. I mean, and we've already discussed that where every aspect of your life is there's no in between.
Yeah.
It's either 1,000% or
like negative.
Negative.
Yeah.
So
All or nothing.
So let's get back to then. You're talking about relationship number 3. She's the one that got away. You're talking a bit with her now, but as you're still talking to her, 2 months after you guys split, you're in a bad space. You're at bad headspace at this point.
No, because I left. I moved to the States.
You moved to the States, but do you think you're in a good headspace though? Like looking back.
Yeah, because like I left because I felt like it was holding the career back. And at that time, what did I only care about? I only cared about the career. I only cared about my companies.
Yeah.
Like my companies were my children. Like the only thing that was like, as much as I love her, it's impossible to like balance two things at 100%.
Okay.
And I do agree that like if you have the right woman, your companies will thrive. But I would argue at the start, one thing is going to have to suffer. Any single person that's like, my company's thrived, but like Grant Cardone, even Jeff Bezos, like all their podcasts were like, my wife paid the price for that because I was working 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day. I was always at the office. I was never at home. So like one thing is going to have to suffer.
Yeah.
I think it's very dependent on the situation. And I think I'm a little bit of the exception in this one. And this is why I say this, is because I have the unique ability to have started a company, and during that time, my spouse is in the field, and then convincing her to come and work at the clinic that I had started up before we had gotten together, convincing her to come to the clinic and work, and working together. So we do put in endless hours. We really, really do. But we both have this belief that at our age, at the point where we are in our life, we need to hustle and work extremely hard to get to the point where we don't have to for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And so we encourage that. I also am a firm believer that, again, comes back to that intelligence part, where I love that unless it's at 3 a.m. when she does wake up and wants to do research on a patient, I love that she is so involved in learning every aspect to help people. I love that. So I'm in the unique position where I don't feel that the relationship has to suffer for the business to thrive.
Yeah.
And so that's the unique position. I do understand where you're coming from though. So when you got into this relationship, you went to the States 2 months.
At the same time, like when COVID hit, I just started traveling nonstop. And like at the same time, how many other people can go to Texas, to LA, to Florida, like also while paying for their house here?
Yes.
So like all they have, like they have houses here too, even my friends. So it's just like, especially my relationship, like we were living together at the time, but it's just like, luckily we found out for her to make money online as well. But it's just like, hey, I need to go to Florida, then to LA, then to Texas, then to Arizona, then back to Florida, then back to Canada. And it's just like, she's now working just to follow me around. So I also felt horrible because of that. And like, she also kind of resented me because of that. Not to mention the type of content I wanted to do wasn't really relationship friendly. But at the same time, that was the type of content that was exploding online. Back like public picking up girls from the street, like wearing a hidden mic and doing the
mic thing,
social experiments. Like those videos all did 200, 300,000 views.
Asking random girls in Florida or Miami to inject you.
Yeah, exactly. So like, but that that isn't really relationship based content, I would say, from my personal opinion now. But back then, I'm like, I needed to choose, like, I don't even know where I want to go, what I want to do. I don't have money to do anything. All I wanted to just own my own companies and have YouTube. And then I either had to pick at that time, cherish a relationship or cherish the companies.
So were you doing that content, though, when you got into the relationship with her?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't?
No, I was working at Popeye Supplements. Like, I was a nobody.
So when you got in the relationship with her, everything changed?
About a year in. Like that's when that YouTube video hit 2.2 million.
Yeah.
6 months after that, I started my own company.
Yeah.
And then 6 months after that, I quit my job.
And at any point, did the two of you have that heart to heart where you sat down and said, these are my aspirations. What are your aspirations? And how can we meet in the middle to make this happen? Or did you just decide?
Selfish.
Well, you guys were like,
Yeah.
what, in 20?
Yeah, 21.
You're 21.
Like, we're not having those conversations at 21.
So like at the same time, like it comes back to like the borderline of being narcissist or being selfish.
Yeah.
I was like, listen, like what I want to do is more important than what you want to do, unfortunately.
So-
and like goes back to everything else I've done in my life is I'll do anything it takes to get there. So if I have to sacrifice this relationship and treat you like shit,
Yeah.
I did. But what I did wrong is I strung her along.
In what
It's
way?
like I should have cut it clean and been like, listen, I want to do this. I know it's like deep down, I knew it wasn't fair to her, but I wanted my cake and I wanted to eat it too. So I wanted the successful businesses, but I also wanted the perfect girlfriend. I knew I couldn't have both, but I would go do that and then come home and make it up to her somehow, like be like almost manipulative in the like love bombing sense of like, let's give her these highs so that when I go fuck up, it won't like be detriment because the high is so high that the low wouldn't be the reason for her to leave. I did that for 4 years, man. Wow. Like I'm a horrible person. I should have just been like, listen, I can't balance the both. I hope to create what I want to create, and if the time is right, then we can get back together.
I think you should say was a horrible person. Am is in the present.
Okay.
If you're here and you're admitting it, then I think everybody who's listening to this, or myself, or any one of us, have done stuff that we are not proud of. Yeah. And it doesn't define who you are. It's who you were, and who you are is as a result of the decisions you've made and the choices you're making moving forward.
Yeah.
So you were a shitty person.
I was
fair,
a very, very horrible
But I don't
person.
think you're a bad person now.
No. And at the same time, I grew up a lot, and then I take people's emotion, like well, not everyone, only the people I care about.
Yeah,
but like now her emotions are as important as mine. So now, but even I applied that. It sucks because I realized this like 3-4 months after ending it with her. Okay. And I'm just like, man, like, I don't know what clicked. Maybe it was all the partying. Because, like, I was going to LA and spending, like, $4,000, $5,000 in one night. Yeah. And, like, my friends that I was with couldn't afford it. Unfortunately, like, all my friends were not doing well financially. But because I was in a position, I'm like, don't worry. Like, I just want to have fun.
Yeah.
So, like, one night I spent $7,000 to go to a promoter table. Like, 30 girls, just me and my friend. We ordered like 2 bottles of 1942, 3 bottles of champagne. And like, you're like the king for that night. Cause like you just spent 10 grand and like no one split it with me. So like, who do you think was the most popular person there?
Yeah.
Me. So like everyone, oh, what do you do for work? How can you afford $10,000 in one night? That's insane. And it was the time of my life. But like shortly after that, I'm like, what am I doing?
You're like, I just spent 10 grand on that shit.
Yeah. Like, what am I? And like at the time, because I needed to be incorporated for my business for 2 years in order to buy housing.
Yeah.
And like I was before that 2-year point. So I'm like, why am I going to keep money in the bank? I'm just going to spend it. I can make it as fast as I can spend it. And I don't overly care to like have a whole bunch of money sitting in the bank. So I'm like, I'm going to spend every cent.
It comes back to you living in that chaos and also you not thinking about the future.
Yeah. No, I did think. I always knew that like YouTube and social media, I don't want to do forever. Oh, okay. And like I know that like that's why I started the companies, because the companies can run themselves. I can sell the companies, I can take percentages from the companies. Always knew I wanted real estate, but I knew that I needed on paper money for 2 years before anyone's going to lend me anything. So for those 2 years, I told myself, I'm like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care how much it is. And money's going to come back regardless. So I'm just like, I'm going to live it up until I can like actually be a little more mature. Okay. And I don't know if that's also what sparked this, but like now we're bidding on income properties, bidding on houses. I have like much more of a like, okay, like let's set up like long-term generational wealth instead of just like going nuts.
So we're gonna get to that in a minute. So you came into that relationship, you went to the States.
Yeah, I went to the States to get away. So I had,
to get away. Yeah.
Supreme Patty messaged me and said, do you want to collab?
That's right.
And like one of the biggest influencers online. Yeah. And I'm like, I need to go to the States. And I was in this relationship and we were already not on good terms for several reasons. One, I was an idiot. I got my license taken for driving stupid. So she was driving me everywhere as well. So I couldn't go get groceries by myself. I couldn't go to the gym by myself. So we were together 24 hours a day. Every single 24 hours, like, and I lived in a tiny little townhouse, 3 stories, no backyard, no basement.
Yeah.
So we were so we were fighting nonstop. So it was already rocky.
And COVID.
So then I got basically an invite to go to Florida. And obviously, again, having a girlfriend that could travel the world with you in the financial position I was at the time, I'm like, I can't afford your plane ticket. I'm like, I can barely afford my plane ticket. So I'm just like, I need to go to Florida. And she's like, oh, okay. But like we were fighting so much. And I'm just like, I knew that going to Florida was going to be like the ending of that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I went to Florida, collabed. These videos start exploding. I start doing better than ever. And I'm just like, shit, I'm having so much fun out here. Do I want to go home to misery? I'm like, no. One of my friends is like, do you want to come live in LA for 3 months? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And I just left. I literally just texted her. I said, I'm not coming home. I'm just like, you have blank to move out.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you move.
And then I moved to LA for 2.5 months and then met a girl there.
That's when you got into that relationship?
Exactly. Yeah. And that was kind of at the point where like the whole partying thing was getting old.
Okay.
I'm just like, none of these people are my friends. I'm spending so much money. I'm like, I also didn't have a license still. So like I was Ubering everywhere. So I'm just like, man, like, I guess you could say like it was getting pretty shitty because I'm like, I just gave up the perfect girl who was like a ride or die, is loyal, doesn't follow dudes, doesn't talk to dudes, wouldn't do a thing behind my back. And like doesn't party, doesn't club, wants to be a mom. It believes in like blue and pink jobs. Like she'll clean the house, I pay the bills. Like she believed everything I believed. And I'm like,
your ideology's aligned.
Yeah. And I gave up all that to do this. I'm like, holy fuck. Like, what did I just do?